Hi everyone. So large Jira tickets, you know those sort of massive Jira tickets that sort of trundle along like a massive truck on a motorway, just huge, just slowly moving along the Jira board. We're going to talk about those today and what the problem with them is and how to resolve that problem. If you've ever been in this situation, you'll know that these massive Jira tickets just slow down the whole progress. They're not the sort of tickets which just fly across the board. They don't move across the board nicely. They are tickets which very slowly stumble across the board while causing other sort of side effects and issues. And that's because of the nature of these large tickets. So what is it about these tickets? Well, a lot of times these tickets are just badly defined. There are sort of lots of unknowns in there. It's just a made up ticket. Okay, we've got to do this task. Okay, let's make a ticket for it and get started, and we'll discover things as we go along. And that's the problem because it's so unclear and so undefined. You do discover things as you go along. You discover that, for example, you can't do this without doing an additional piece of work, which you incorporate into this ticket. And then you think, okay, there's loads of other things, dependencies and so on that needs to take place. Again, you just incorporate them into this ticket. So this ticket just grows and just continues and doesn't really get anywhere. So what is the issue? I mean, the work is still being done, right? Well, the issue is that you can't accurately predict how long it's going to take to move across the board. That's an issue in terms of communication with stakeholders, just planning in general, road mapping, etc. But also, as this massive ticket is developing, the scope of it isn't well defined. So who defines the scope? Well, anybody who's working on the ticket, I suppose. But while they're doing that, the actual team's priorities might change. So it might be the case that not that ticket is, because it's gone on for so long and it's expanded to such a large thing, it's no longer actually needed. We only needed a very small portion of that. Again, because the priorities change, and especially if you're working in Agile, things change all the time. So a large ticket just means that you are less agile and you might end up working on priorities which you don't need to work on. And so this massive ticket, this work that never gets done because priorities have now changed, is just left there. And again, it's just wasted effort. So what you have to do is just be really diligent about looking at that ticket and making a very clear ticket. And I've talked about Lunar Logic before in other videos, but Lunar Logic is all about breaking down tickets, making sure that each ticket is small, very accurate in terms of very defined, and it has clear acceptance criteria. So ideally, you have this small, very well-defined ticket, which will align with your priorities. Now, if it's moving along as it should do, it'll move along through the board relatively quickly. You sort of 3 days perhaps is a good time. You can choose the time for your own team, but it also means that if the priorities for the team changes, then actually that piece of work is done, it's merged, and the priorities can change. You can pivot into a different direction. That's fine, rather than having this massive ticket which sort of never gets done and is left because of priorities changing. So just to give you an example of this, and I've encountered this a number of times, and one of the difficulties of this is to get the person to understand that these tickets can be broken down, okay? Because oftentimes it's a case of doing something as you've always done it. So someone comes in and says, "Oh, this actually it can be done differently," and the benefits of it being done differently. It's about communicating that to the team. What I found is that if you are, for example, if you're doing a bit of research for a feature, that research could be one large ticket. Okay, so it's research for the this particular feature that you're developing, and it seems on the face of it that that's a fairly sensible ticket. You need to do research and then you'll do the design and development. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. Okay, so firstly, it's a massive amount of research all at once, and then I suppose you're going to go on to design and into development. There's a certain sort of non-agile process there, so maybe break down the research a little bit more. Actually, what is it that you're going to research and what follow-up research do you need to do? Does that follow-up research need to be part of that initial ticket? No, it doesn't. And then also in terms of the research, there's several stages to research, right? It's not just research. You've got the planning stages, you've got the sort of implementation stages, you've got the review stages, you've got the presentation stages. So again, those can be separate tickets. And again, so you can see that you can start to challenge the regular way things are done, and you can incorporate them into your ways of working. So in this case, for example, let's say you do the planning for the research, that ticket gets done, but actually priorities change, and for a month you have to jump off and do something else. Well, that ticket's done, those research is sort of banked, you can move on to your other priorities, come back, have a look at this and pick it up again. Again, it's about, not only is it helpful in terms of keeping the board easy to read, it's actually better for people in that discipline who are working on that ticket to focus entirely on one aspect at a time. Okay, so the new priorities come in, the other priorities have already moved off the board. You can then shift the next part of those priorities back onto the board after you've dealt with the emergency priorities. So it's about keeping a clear board, but also about helping your team be clear on exactly what they should focus on and having that sort of razor sharp focus. And that ties into what I've talked about before in keeping sprints to be exactly self-contained, try not to overrun sprints from one sprint to another. So I hope that helped. Go away, have a look at your Jira board, have a look at what tickets have overrun. I'm going to do another video on progress metrics and things that you can have a look. But one thing you can have a look at is cycle time. And cycle time is a key indicator of your ticket size. Because it will show you how long it takes for a ticket to go from getting on the board to finishing on the board, whatever your status is. So I'm going to call it done, which is probably the same for most people. And it'll tell you how long it takes. And so if you, for example, if you're running sprints, which are 2 weeks in length, and your cycle time is 6 weeks, then you know you've got a problem, and you need to take a closer look at your tickets. If you're running sprints that are 4 weeks long, and your tickets take 4 weeks, then fantastic, you've hit the right sort of note. And then of course you've got to question whether 4-week sprints are good for what you're doing, or whether you should move them to 2-week sprints, because it could be the case that historically, as I've seen in a couple of teams I've worked in, historically sprint lengths have been increased to encompass the average time of the tickets, especially again with regards to research and design tickets I found in particular. So again, you want to look at that, and there's a few layers of understanding there. And when I do the video on progress metrics, I can have a look at that in a bit more detail. All right, thanks everyone for listening. I'd love to hear about your difficulties and successes with making Jira tickets smaller, making them a bit more agile. Feel free to comment, and definitely press subscribe and press like, and I'll speak to you all later.